What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TB, and I want to give a shout out to LB. He's sometimes frequently does videos over on Ticket TV's channels. I think it's Pro Basketball Updates. Shout out to LB. He got his own channel as well. He was talking about a segment that I saw a couple days ago, man, and I meant to do a video about it, but I forgot about it. It was a segment on ESPN. I forgot what show it was. It might have been. Oh well, I guess was it First Take? Might have been First Take. I don't know. But it was Richard Jefferson, Damon Jones, and I can't think of her name. He said it in the video, LB, but I can't remember her name. Might begin with an S or something. But they were talking about Luka Doncic, and Richard Jefferson said something to me that it's just like, look. Some people say some shit like, well, it's these guys' opinion, man. You know, and yeah, it is their opinion. Okay, but when you start suspecting that people have agendas, then it is what it is, man. Like, he said that Luka Doncic, to him, is not a top five MVP candidate. And his main reasoning behind it was, well, Kristaps Porzingis basically makes things easier for Luka. And I'm listening to like the reasoning, and I'm like, huh? Damon Jones was kind of on the same page. It was the other girl, the black girl that, so like LB said, that was spitting some real shit. She was talking about some advanced metrics and shit. And like I said, I'm not all about stats, but stats do matter a lot. And this is my thing. First of all, Kristaps Porzingis, for the most part, as LB said, has not had a great season. And another flaw with what Richard Jefferson said is, he said that it's Kristaps Porzingis that's making life easier for Luka Doncic. But if we remember correctly, as much as James Harden is scoring this year, statistically, Luka Doncic has the ball more than anybody else in the league. So, if anything, Luka Doncic is making life easier for Kristaps Porzingis. As Kristaps Porzingis is not fucking stepping up to the plate and playing up to his expectations. Now, you can argue about maybe Kristaps need to get the ball more, but if one guy's dominating the offense that much, it's on him, right? His impact is greater than anybody else's, right? That's what the argument. That's the argument you hear about the Houston Rockets. James Harden is carrying his team. A little bit of Russell, but mostly James Harden. And you look at the fact that this is Luka Doncic's second year in the NBA, and I think he's averaging like better than 29, 9, and 9. I think he has 8 or 9 triple doubles. He had a triple double last night. Right now, the Dallas Mavericks, who were not necessarily expected to be in the playoffs this year. The last couple of years in the Dirk Nowitzki era, the Mavericks had become a mediocre and at times poor team. So, while Luka was Rookie of the Year last year, oftentimes second-year players have that sophomore jinx. They don't play as well. We've seen that with several players. But Luka has nixed the jinx, and he's playing lights-out basketball. And if you're going to sit there and say that to you he's not a top 5 player, then you have to tell us then who do you put ahead of him? Like, is it okay? Who is it? Giannis, Harden, Davis. And when Richard Jefferson is saying this, I'm thinking he's pretty much like trying to say, well, LeBron is ahead of him. Because I'm thinking, like, what's next? LeBron? 4? Who's 5? Because Durant's not playing this year. So it's like, I'm just wondering about these dudes, man. Like, I'm trying to figure out, how do you not have Luka Doncic as a top 5 player right now in the league? What are you using? Like, what are you going by? Right now, the Dallas Mavericks are the fifth seed. If you're going by expectations, the Mavericks and Luka have wildly exceeded expectations. All right, and it's not like it's a small sample size. It's not like we're only 5 games in, or 10 games in, and 15 games in. We're over 30 games into the regular season, so we're almost halfway through. So what are you going by? Team success? That's there. Right now, like LB said in his video, they'd be playing the Houston Rockets, who they've already decimated this year. So that probably will be a competitive, fun series. Are you going by individual production? Because Luka Doncic has been playing MVP caliber basketball in his second year. Okay? Now, does Luka have holes in his game? Yeah. Sometimes he takes bad shots. Defensively, he's not good. Okay? But in this league, it seems like it doesn't matter. I notice people only bring up the defensive deficiencies of a player when they're trying to shit on him. I can mention all the time that James Harden doesn't give effort on defense. His fans will say, well, defense doesn't matter as much in today's NBA. So don't bring him up when it comes to Luka then. If that's your argument. Because you don't like him, now all of a sudden defense matters. You don't like Carmelo Anthony, so now defense matters when you talk about Carmelo. But you just got to wonder about some of these dudes, man. Like, look, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm not trying to be one. But we all know Richard Jefferson played with LeBron James for several years. Okay? Damon Jones, he was on some of those teams with Cleveland back in the 2000s. Uh, you know, we already know about Nick Wright. We already know about Shannon Skip Sharp. Chris Broussard, and various others. Colin Cowherd, oh my God, he's terrible. There's always these guys. There's the rat ear dude. I can't think of his name, but he has big ass ears with like a beard. He looks like a mouse, senor. That's terrible. But anyway, all these dudes, man, look, I don't get it. Like I said, in other videos, anybody that poses a threat to a particular guy in any way, shape, or form, it's like these individuals whom I name, they all of a sudden have an issue with this guy. It's like they can't like more than one guy. They can't praise more than one guy. All you have to do is say, wow, this guy puts up LeBron like numbers. And then guys like Richard Jefferson and Damon Jones, like they clutch their purse and like they get offended and defensive. And then all of a sudden they have to have these arguments or these segments where they just have to shit on the guy. I don't know. You come to your own conclusions as to why they're doing that. Luka's over here minding his business, establishing his own legacy. Okay, so I think what people should do is take a mental photo of what Richard Jefferson and Damon Jones, have said about him not being a top 5 player right now. And I guess if you're saying he's not a top 5 player, then in essence you're saying he's not an MVP candidate. So you take a snapshot of that in your mind. And as we go to March into April, if these guys are singing a different tune, hold them accountable to what they said earlier. There's no accountability for these dudes, man. You know what I'm saying? And it's getting worse every season. Every season, the slope becomes slipperier and slipperier with these guys. It's getting to the point now, as I've emphasized before, it's getting to a point where these guys are lying and they're not being held accountable for it. Now, I'm not saying Richard Jefferson or Damon Jones lie, but there are people like Nick Wright, he's the main one, and some others who are actually now lying. Nick Wright, and one of my subs reminded me of this. One time, Nick Wright said LeBron James averages more steals than Jordan. That's a lie. See, if I was on that show, he wouldn't get away with that with me. He would not get away with lying like that. You know, it's bad enough that you are obviously capping for somebody. You know what I'm saying? You have an agenda, but then now you're lying. Nah, he's worse than Skip Bayless, man. I'm sorry. Skip is terrible, but Skip has an agenda on in the opposite spectrum. You know what I'm saying? To the point where he'll it's like, damn, Skip, does everything that LeBron does have to be related to Michael Jordan in some way, like some type of weird 6 degrees of separation shit? All roads lead to Jordan. Like, leave Jordan, shut the fuck up about Jordan for once, man. But but at the same time, Nick Wright is a liar. He's a compulsive liar when needs be. So that's it. I just don't understand. Like, people can have their own opinions, but when you get to a certain point, man, it's like, wait a minute now. Now, if you don't think that Luka Doncic is the MVP, that's cool. You don't think he's top two? Okay, well, all right. But saying he's not top five, I mean, now that's when you're starting to. And it's not only that he's not saying he's top five. He's saying, like, in no way is he top five. Now that's when I'm like, okay, wait a minute now. How are you saying something like that? What are you basing that on? And like I said before, who are the 5 guys you would put ahead of him? Because the only names I heard him say, or only names I heard these guys say, are Giannis, who I would have as MVP right now, and James Harden, who I don't think is that high. I would put James Harden in the top 5, but I wouldn't have him number 2. I would have Kawhi Leonard there. And I just answered my own earlier question. So I guess what Richard Jefferson is saying is that he would have, I guess, Giannis, James Harden, and then I guess he wouldn't name any other names. But then I guess he might be insinuating after that you might put AD, Kawhi, and LeBron. And there's no way in hell that I would put LeBron James this season ahead of what Luka Doncic is doing. No way in hell. As a matter of fact, as much as I cap for Kawhi, I wouldn't put Kawhi ahead of what Luka's doing this season. Not as far as the entirety of the season. Now, Kawhi's been playing better as of late. They did lose to Utah last night, but at least Utah's a top 500 team. Above 500 team. But for the whole season, no, Luka to me is up there. I would have it to me. I would have Giannis number 1. I would have Luka number 2. At number 3, look, as much as I bash James Harden, you still have to give him credit for what he's doing. All right? To be averaging 38, 39 points a game is still impressive. And he does have these burst games. Now, he has these terrible shooting games, but he does have these burst games. So you have to acknowledge what he's doing. And his offense does have an impact on the Rockets, but they want to lose a lot of times. So, yeah, I would put James Harden maybe 3, okay? Maybe. But I still think that Kawhi is a better player. But as far as what James Harden is doing, I could see you maybe putting him ahead of Kawhi. They're interchangeable, 3 or 4. Number 5, I might have AD. LeBron is a top 10, but he's not top 5. But I think in my head, that's what they're doing. They're kind of leaving room for LeBron in the top 5. And I'm sorry, LeBron's not a top 5 player in the league anymore. I know he's leading the NBA in assists, but he's not a top 5 guy. He's a top 10 guy, but not top 5. So that's what I got to say about this video, man. Tell me what you guys think.